it's almost like Tinkerbell. If Tinkerbell stops believing in her wings, she stops being able to fly type thing. Así me ha pasado mucho, where it's like I've experienced these moments of synchronicity and alignment and beautiful, like, oh my gosh. Y luego como que I stop believing in my wings and se me olvida. And I go to this place of like hopelessness or just like this place como of like struggle and like, no, I need to create a strategy and a plan and do more. And nothing works, nothing works, nothing works until I'm like, I give up. Hola, beautiful first gen. Welcome back to the First Gen Healing Podcast. I'm so grateful and thankful that you are here. And I am going to be posting this with video on all the plataformas. So that's something new. Some of the platforms didn't allow video before, others it just took too long to upload, but we're going to try it this time. So make sure that you check that out. You might not know that almost all podcast episodes are recorded in video, and I typically post them in YouTube with the video. So if you're ever like, oh, I want to see them talk, or I watch YouTube, I didn't know it was on YouTube. It's on YouTube. No más que mucha gente no sabe, and I don't share it often, but it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and I think it also shares with other platforms. But anywho, I was thinking I could do like a random facts about me and my life and things I've learned. I don't know. I think sometimes pasan muchas cosas and I don't always have like the time or the energy to like filter them out or share them in plataformas. And also there's just information that sometimes like maybe doesn't have a place to go. So I thought that this could be like a brain dump, let's say, of random facts, information, para que nos conozcamos un poquito más, porque I have been doing this podcast since the fall of 2022. And I wanted to start off with that porque recently I met a recurring guest on this podcast que se llama Michael Limes. If you guys have heard episodes with him, I recently finally met him in person. And we were talking about how him and I first met in 2022, virtually online. We were both posting online. I was in my very baby beginnings, let's say. I still am, pero um, just realizing how things can take time. I think we're in an era where we see like before and afters. Like, if, let's say, currently I'm working on losing weight. If you start looking up videos of losing weight, what are you going to see before and afters? And your mind can be tricked so quickly because you're seeing these before and afters and you might feel like, oh, well, I have to get there fast. But in order to get that before and after video, some people se tardaron un año, 2 años, 6 meses. And unfortunately, like, we can consume so much that it makes us feel like we're already behind. Oh my God, and put this pressure behind ourselves. And similarly with soul projects, with business ideas, with pivots in our lives, I think that it can be so easy to feel like, oh, this isn't happening fast enough, or I'm behind, getting in comparison mode. But the reality is that I might have mentioned this before in another episode, but what I have realized being in this game, let's say in this pivot of life for the last 4 years, is that yes, some people are going to reach a level of quote unquote success that you're going to look at and be like, wow, that is so amazing. And yet, the parts that you don't often see, that we don't often see if we don't pay enough attention, is that sometimes people climb so fast, they burn out very fast. Like, there are people who I have met along the way that no longer post at all, that are no longer holding this dream and vision at all, because it happened so fast that it also like turned them off really quickly. So just a reminder, pues, que we never really know what things are actually like, and to remember that things take time. And so it has taken a while to start to get to know some of the people that I have met online in person. But as we were talking, we were, ay, ya se me fue. What were we mentioning? Ay, no. Ay, no. Ya se me fue mi whole spiel. I've noticed sometimes, like when I edit, I'm like, "Ay, Priscilla, you didn't finish this question out or this topic out, you know?" Um, Pero I bet there's a lot of us out there que se nos va el avión, especially, you know, as we're getting, I guess, older. So one random fact is that I skipped kindergarten when I was in elementary school. So I was in pre-K and all I spoke was Spanish because obviously my parents only spoke Spanish, so then I only spoke Spanish. And in that school, I think they had pre-K in Spanish as well, and they had kindergarten in Spanish. So my mom was like, no, no quiero que siga nomás hablando español. I want her to learn English. So then the school was like, oh, well, we can test her into bilingual first grade. So then I skipped over kindergarten and I went into first grade. Random fact. And because of that, throughout my high school and college years, I think I settled into and got really comfy with being known as like the young one, you know? Which now I'm thinking back, of course I love that because in my family, obviously, I'm the eldest. So like when people used to tell me, "Oh, you're so young," or like, you know, "Oh, she's the baby of the group," like me hacía sentir como maybe como un baby. And obviously, as a first gen eldest, yo nunca me sentí como un baby, or maybe I did, I just don't remember. But I feel like I had to grow up really quickly. So, so yeah, throughout my life, I feel like I had always been como the young one in the group. My coworkers were always older than me. And I feel like now I'm settling into an area of life where now I'm starting to be the old one, not the young one. And it has been a shift. Y me hace sentir como que, ay, no. But anyways, I'm trying to remember what I was gonna tell you guys about Michael. But anywho, well, before I continue, I want to remind you to please subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. If you know, like there's different platforms that allow for that, and or there's ratings, right? So you could give it its 5 stars, a little review, lo que salga de tu corazón. But I want to remind you to please do that. That helps me so much. If you are one of the few that have left a comment, I want to say gracias. Thank you so much. Someone actually recently commented after the episode where I was kind of going through it and I showed myself really vulnerably. Someone me mandó un virtual abrazo, I remember. So thank you so much if you are listening. I am excited and I am envisioning a day where there's a lot of like comments after the episodes, you know, where you guys share like what resonated with you, what you would have liked me to ask. Porque yo sé que when I listen to podcasts, sometimes I'm like, man, I wish that person would have asked this and that, you know? And then also, of course, I'm envisioning the day where we have a sponsor for the podcast. That would be amazing. Le tengo que empezar a echar el ojo a brands que are supporting Latinos and Latinas and Latines around these times, right? Porque, pues sí, unos que estén apoyando de verdad, de verdad. Anyways, back to random facts. I dye my own hair. I cut my own hair. I do my own nails. I wax myself. ¿Qué más? Obviously, I do like my own graphics on the podcast and, you know, content and all of that, like my logos and things like that. And the reason I'm mentioning it no es para presumir, pero es because someone was like, man, like your creative juices, you can use them towards so much. You're so lucky, right? And I was telling her, honestly, I feel like all of us have this ability, pero as first gens, that's what I'm related to. That's what I think it is. But I imagine all humans, but you know, maybe it could be even like because of capitalism, because of conditioning, because of scarcity, all these things, right? No nos damos la oportunidad to really experiment with our abilities, you know? Like I told her, I feel like everyone can get good at a lot of things. They just have to be willing to mess up. And not a lot of people are willing to mess up. So my hair, like I've gotten it right, but I've also messed it up a million times. Nails. I've loved so many sets that I've created, pero también I've hated a lot of them, or not liked them. Me las pongo y me las quito in 2 days. So, obviously with graphics también, with just like a lot of the things, cake. Oh, I bake, I cook, I do arts and crafts, and I think, or I want to share about a moment in my life where this took, where I planted this seed. It was back in 2019. Some of you know the story about the panic attack, right? My first panic attack that I had on a flight back from a vacation, recognizing, oh my God, this job is making me so stressed. I don't want to feel this stressed. No amount of money or no title is worth me feeling good. And that was the first time I ever had those thoughts because, I used to be como muy ambitious and a go-getter and all this stuff. So anyways, when I realized that, I decided to quit. And at that time, I was starting to like get in the depths of my awakening, starting to have downloads. I was also gardening a lot, if you know what I mean, 420 vibes. And I mentioned that porque I know in our culture there can be some shame and guilt around gardening. Obviously, it's not well received or not well perceived. And I think it's important to share all parts of the journey. Like, ahora, I don't drink or smoke, I don't do any of that. Pero it would also be a lie to say, like, oh, I never did, And I feel like at that point, because nowadays, some people tell me, like, you express so easily what I feel, but don't know how to speak. And I truly think that in those years, I didn't have words for what I was going through, and I didn't have tools and resources to ground myself, to know what that even was, to quiet my mind. So because there wasn't those things, then I had to numb, and my way of numbing was like smoking a lot. So anyways, not only did it help me numb, but I also think it opened some pathways that, as a responsable, madura, según, Priscilla, she would have never gotten to explore those parts of my brain or my ideas, etc. And I do feel like smoking kind of like opened those pathways for me. So, anywho, because of that, me estaba llegando como una idea to do like a list called Priscilla's School. And around that time, I was learning about just like how much conditioning there is in this world, right? Like how we're put into these school systems, how we're given these pathways, a checklist of what to do to be quote unquote successful. And so what I realized is like, I really wish that we would have had a different version of school. And so then I started to write, like, what would I want to learn in my school? And what can I, as an adult, make sure that I explore? And so, por ejemplo, I think I put like astrology. I want to learn how to bake. I want to learn how to cook. I want to be better at art or even try art. I've never really tried it. I want to roller skate. Como que I put just a lot of things that called my name, but I never dared to think that I could be good at. And so that summer, I was intentionally unemployed and I was like, I'm going to give myself a month. That's what it started off as, a month to explore, to just not worry about work. I would wake up and then I would be like, okay, I'm going to try this makeup look. I saved on Pinterest like different things. I'm going to try this makeup look. And then I tried like the makeup look, right? And I would just yeah, allow myself to play como una niña que, just like learn and mess up. It was a time in life that I recommend to everyone. And it doesn't have to be like while being unemployed, It was not a responsible thing for me to do, but I think it was like my soul awakening and being like, F everything, let's just, yeah. So, anyways, I remember que hice unas quesadillas hechas a mano. So I had a friend come over y le hice sus quesadillas con masa. The ones like quesadillas fritas, las freí, corté la lechuga, queso crema, salsa verde, and it was so good. I remember I also was like, I want to learn how to make pozole. So then I made myself some pozole. I started to learn Italian with Duolingo. I think I had an iPad and I had this app called Procreate. I feel like some of you may know that app. And I just started to draw and play, and my drawing sucked and my ideas sucked. But like, it was like me unlocking and unblocking all of these things, you know? And so all of this to say, it's like before you dare say you're not good at something, before you dare say that you could never, that you're not creative, that you wish you had this skill, I want you to ask yourself, have I ever really given myself a chance to learn this skill, to know the thing, to try the thing? A real chance, not a one and done, you know? Um and if not, pues ahí tienes tu respuesta. You have to be willing to try. No one just wakes up and is good at something. Oh my gosh, there we go. Ya me acordé de lo que le iba a decir a Michael. You see? Estoy como fuida, pero no tan fuida, you know? Okay. No, que no se me vaya. Oh my God. Okay. No. Yeah. So when we were talking about like, wait, when did we first meet? And we were looking back, you know, etc. He was like, oh, you were in Tennessee back then? And I was like, yeah, I was living in Tennessee. And he's like, tell me again why you were there. And so then I was like, oh, I was there because my sister was going through cancer treatment. Um and so then he was like, wow, you were going through that while you started the podcast. And I was like, yeah. In fact, you guys, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but so basically, summer of 2022, I was working remotely. I had been in Tennessee for a year. My sister had gone through chemo already, surgeries already. I was working remotely and I was in a phase in my life where I was really like, ya no aguanto trabajar en esto anymore. At that time, the company was going through a lot of transition, and I was working under someone that I felt was really incompetent, the type that is making 100K plus, but doesn't know how to open a PDF type vibe, you know? And it would boil my skin. Así como me sentía como que, oh, yo. Y le decía como al universo, help me figure out if, like, how to get out of this world. I already know this is a BS world. I felt like I already knew como loyalty to a company is an illusion because I had gone through the pandemic with them and we went through layoff round after layoff round, and we would let people go who had worked for the company for 20 years, who were like really loyal to the company and knew, they thought they knew that they were going to retire from this, like from working with this company, and they would let them go. Literally, like, they would schedule a meeting 30 minutes before, tell them to attend, and then they would say, like, you know, I'm sorry, we're laying you off. Here's your severance agreement package, which usually was like 4 weeks, 8 weeks max. You no longer have access to your computer. Thank you, bye. Imagine working for a company for 20 something years and like así te despiden. And I knew that it wasn't singular to this company. And so anyways, I was just so over like the matrix world, you know, the corporate stuff, the ugh. Entonces, even though at that time I was working remotely and because it was so chaotic, a veces había mucho trabajo y a veces ni siquiera había trabajo, like me hacía la pendeja. I just couldn't stomach it anymore. I couldn't stomach it. And so anyways, in June, I think it was, I decided to quit. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this jump. I've heard that when we leap, the universe, like, you know, has your back. And maybe that's what I need. I just need to take a big leap that tells the universe, like, I'm down for the ride. Take me where I need to go next, you know? Entonces, I call my manager at that time and I tell him like, hey, you know, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. Thank you for, you know, whatever, etc. And my manager stays quiet. Mind you, I also had not found like what I was going to step into. The name First Gen Healing ya existía, and I had already barely started posting on social media. And that was enough for me to be like, okay, me voy para acá. No sé qué voy a hacer, pero me voy. So, anyways, he's listening to me and he's like, okay, well, I just want you to know that the company is being dissolved in, no me acuerdo, oh, he said like in 2 months. And so if you want, I can forget this conversation and you can get severance, you can apply for unemployment. And I was like, oh my God, yes, please. And so then I was like, please forget this conversation. And at that time, I felt like, wow, the universe really does have your back when you take a leap. Like, oh my God, this was better than I could have ever imagined, you know. And I was also like in a moment where I was testing because I always felt como like the things that these white hippie ladies would say, awoken ladies, pues ha de ser de white people, pero it must not be real for me, because I think that probably comes from privilege, not from reality. So when I tested it and I mean, I wasn't like doing it to test the universe, but when I did it and that happened, I felt like, wow, okay, this must have been the right decision. I am being supported, by the universe. And what's so interesting is that I feel like a lot of the journey is like that, where when we are in this trust, in this flow, things really do kind of align, and it can be a beautiful journey. Pero no sé por qué, at least me, it's almost like Tinkerbell. If Tinkerbell stops believing in her wings, she stops being able to fly type thing. Así me ha pasado mucho, where it's like I've experienced these moments of synchronicity and alignment and beautiful, like, oh my gosh. Y luego como que I stop believing in my wings and se me olvida. And I go to this place of like hopelessness, or just like this place como of like struggle, and like, no, I need to create a strategy and a plan and do more. And nothing works, nothing works, nothing works until I'm like, I give up. And then I kind of come back to the belief again, and I work on my self love, and I come back to my mirror and do some mirror work. And, like I start journaling again, and I start pouring back into me. And then otra vez, las alas vuelven a aparecer y la magia vuelve a aparecer. It's really interesting, but let me know if you guys have experienced that too, where it's kind of like you're able to tap in but never fully stay in. I think that's part of the work that we get to do on this path. So that happened, and then in August, I think it was when the idea dropped in. So around the time where I quit, I I heard someone on social media say, "Hi, my name is da da da. I'm a Latina. If you want to be on my podcast, let me know." And I was like, super scared. I didn't even know what I would talk about, but I was like, oh, yes, yes, like I will be on her podcast. And I signed up, and she said yes. And so we scheduled, and then we finally I got to be on her podcast, and that became a close friend of mine. Her name is Yasmin, and she's been on this podcast a couple of times también, aka at Your Soul. And so we started to become like virtual besties, hablábamos mucho. And in the summer, once I no longer had my job, once they laid me off essentially, then se me vino la idea. And I've talked about how the idea of the podcast dropped in other episodes, but once it did, and my friend Yasmin was like, yes, girl, go for it, then that's where it started. That same month, I think I wrote down the intro, and I started to think of like what the concept would be, and what the guiding como questions would be. And I recorded my first couple of episodes, and then I got a really hard call. So I was in Tennessee for my sister's treatment, but out here in California, I have someone that, like, another set of family that I would consider como, pues son mi madrina, mi padrino, and their daughter and their son, but their daughter, who unfortunately her whole life she has gone through a lot of health issues and health problems. And they called me, or called us, and they told us that the doctors had said that she didn't have a lot of time left. We decided that it was necessary that we come out to California, to at least see her before she could potentially pass away. And I had planned to release the podcast the week that we decided to end up coming. So I had already planned it, but luego se hizo que the week that I had my flight, pues pasó todo esto. Entonces, there's this thing that I have noticed that I really hope isn't always true, where like sometimes when there's really positive things that are happening, vienen cosas muy inesperadas for people también, that are almost like trying to knock you down. I don't know what that energy is, and I don't want to claim it, and I don't want to say that it always happens. But I have noticed that a lot of people como talk about these peaks in their lives, and they're como acompañados de cosas que no esperaban, of hard things that they've survived, but they're hard. So for that, for those moments, that felt really hard to be like really excited about life again, because I had been in the deep depression, I feel, because everything that was going on. I felt excited again. It was almost like a floaty, where I could like hold on to this thing and promote it and just like connect with others. And then this kind of was happening at the same time, it was really tough. But I remember I released it. I remember even como when it went live, I was in a passenger seat and I was checking the app, like has anyone listened to the intro? And a couple people did. And so anyways, this is a really, really long-winded version of me telling you what Michael and I were talking about, which is que even though I feel like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 4 years and it hasn't fully taken off the way I would have liked for it to do, I was also going through a really hard time. I was also not in a moment of time. Like I was holding on to this for survival, not from a place of thriving. And so maybe, I love to reflect things back to you guys, but maybe, I can reflect the realization that a veces we don't give ourselves enough credit for the things that we're going through and for what we're navigating and holding at the same time, in comparison to others a veces. Porque I wasn't coming from a place of like, oh, I've figured everything out. Life is good. Let me start this new project. It was life is really hard right now, but this idea came to mind. Like, let me put my all behind it because I need something to hold on to. And so it gave me something to funnel my energy into weekly. And what a blessing now looking back, because I had left my job. And so like I did feel actually really lost, because one thing is dreaming about leaving your job, doing your own thing. That's version it's a draft, but there's a million other drafts that happen before your final draft, or before a better draft comes along. There's a lot of changes that come with, because even when you're like so aware of like, oh my god, in this 9 to 5, like how silly is it that in this lifetime we have to ask if we can go to a doctor's appointment, or ask if we can go to the, like, what time we can take our lunch, and like vacation is so limited. Obviously it's only 1 week or 2 weeks of vacation. Como I was really frustrated about this version of the matrix, but also cuando you unplug from it a little bit, it could feel like como it's disorienting. It's exciting, but it's also disorienting, and it's like a lot of things all at once. Ooh, I just saw 333. Wait, 3333, 4 threes. But yeah, it could be a lot of things. And so that's what it was. And so I'm looking back, I'm so grateful that I had this like anchor, that I could funnel some energy towards and creativity towards. But yeah, that's what we were talking about. And that's what we kind of, or he helped me realize también that, yeah, yes, it's been a while, and maybe one would think like these projects could take off, or should take off faster. But it also ties with what I started, right? With like, sometimes we're in an era where we can see the success so big and flashy that we can think like, dang, I'm not making it, dang, I'm behind. But it's not always true. And there's a lot more that maybe no estamos acostumbrados to look at, or we bypass, in the name of comparison. But it's like, hey, actually you're holding a lot, love, and you're doing great, or you're doing the best you can, and that's all you can do. So yeah. And then something else came to mind, pero se me olvidó. Ah, yes. Okay. Something that I've talked about briefly before is that sometimes when you manifest, or when you like really are calling something in, it could take time to realize that you're already like stepping into it, that you're actually already living out your manifestation without even realizing it. And it's such a weird, surreal feeling. Como, como even, what can I, even por ejemplo, Soul Primas, okay? Soul Primas, the online virtual community that I host, that you can join if you want to be a part of it. I just revamped the website, so you can go check it out. It's in the description, and we meet monthly. But even that, my gosh, 4 years ago, when I was going through all of this that I just talked about, I remember my thought was, I wonder if there's other humans like me. Not only humans, but like first gen Latinos, Latinas, Latinas like me, that no sé, como que that speak Spanglish, that grew up listening to, let's say, banda or no sé, reggaeton, but that are also into manifestation and energy and Reiki. And, I was like, I wonder. And now, 4 years later, I'm hosting this community that is about that, but is also about like stepping into a version of yourself that's been calling your name. And como que I always, no sé por qué, I feel like a beginner. I always feel like a beginner, as in like I need to prove myself or I need to get this going. And I don't know why that happens. Like I said, it's just a real thing that happens when the thing that you maybe envisioned is happening. Um, but for example, the community, this is not actually the first community I host. This is the second one. So from 2024 to 2025, I hosted Good E Has Gone Badish. And it was a group of mujeres, it was about like learning how to prioritize yourself, learning about perfectionism and self-sabotage and como different things that you go through as you're healing, right? As you're cre- rediscovering and redefining yourself. And I feel like Soprimas is like the graduated version of that. But anyways, as a facilitator, as a creator, a veces me siento como una beginner and I'm like, Priscilla, you've already done this. What do you talk about, girl? Or when I feel like I'm just like, oh, I'm behind in all these things. And then other people reflect back to me like, dude, you're doing this and that. Like, that's so cool. Like, that's what I would want to do. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm already doing the things. So there's this weird como I don't want to call it imposter syndrome because it's I don't maybe it is that no lo sé, but it's this feeling como que it never fully lands that I'm already really like living out the person and the version of life that I was calling in. I also think it's because like my story and maybe for you también is that I actually didn't really have like a dream life that I would say was authentic to me and my true self. But I can't imagine, like, let's say singers that have known that they want to be singers their whole lives, like right now, Carol G, right? Carol G. Um, no me imagino, or I actually wonder maybe, does she too, like, kind of, she's like singing and doing the things, but I wonder if her body can actually register what's happening, or if it's like this out of body, like, yeah, I know I'm here, but like, I can't fully tap in, like, no sé, like, if she feels that too. And I wonder for you guys, like, have you experienced that? Maybe dreaming something up and then finally getting to live it out and it's not like disassociating, no, but it's like almost just like not being fully able to recognize, oh, that thing is happening. Oh, I'm experiencing this. I hope you guys are enjoying this type of episode. I was washing the dishes earlier and I'm like, ¿de qué voy a hablar hoy? What am I going to make this episode about? And I was like, I should just give them some random facts and talk about things that maybe I don't always talk about. One thing that I do want to kind of touch on, and it's going to bring the mood just a little bit down, but I'm not gonna take us too deep today. I had mentioned in a previous episode that a cousin of mine passed away. Only a few days later, I got news that someone who I had met through the podcast passed away as well, and her name was Melissa. And Melissa also recorded 2 episodes on the podcast. I think it was last year or the year before actually. Melissa shared with us that she was diagnosed with cancer in her early 20s, that she went to Mexico and healed holistically. And I kept in touch with her. Her and I co hosted a couple of things together. And in fact, a few weeks before she passed away, in the Soprimas hangout, uh, um, someone had brought up the topic of Akashic records and that they were interested in learning more about it. And I told them, like, oh, my friend Melissa, she does Akashic records. Let me hit her up. Let me ask her if she's down to do like a collaboration, maybe like a special Sol Prima price, for Akashic readings. And so I did. I messaged her and we were like voice noting, and she was like, oh, I'm so down. Just let me know, and let's do a virtual cafecito antes so that we can coordinate. And so then I was like, yeah, and I responded to her, and then I didn't hear back from her. Um, and then I thought it was normal, we talk like, but not like every day, So anyways, then I got tagged in something that said like, rest in peace, beautiful soul. And yeah, and that's how I found out, and I ended up messaging them, and they shared some of like the details around it. And I want to share this with you guys porque obviously like she was a part of this podcast, but also I feel like the people that I meet along this path are or what I have found, the part that is really magical about putting yourself out there, stepping into your authentic self, is that you really get to meet others that are also in their own vision of authenticity, mirroring a part of you back to you. And for those of us that are stepping into like, or that are coming into awareness of the unseen paths, the unseen energy, the unseen knowings, it really is so impactful when we get to meet someone who speaks our language, who is also figuring out their own language, and none of us have all the answers, but we all have a little bit of the answers, kind of like little puzzle pieces. And to me, Melissa was such a beautiful puzzle piece because the reason she actually like we actually ran across each other is because when she was in Mexico healing her own cancer, she heard the episode that I recorded with my sister about my sister's cancer. And she said, like, I really appreciated feeling seen, and feeling like I'm not alone in this. And it took her a year to hit me up and say hello and introduce herself. And then from there, we met up. And I thought, wow, how beautiful and magical that me sharing my story, my sister being willing to share her story, could help someone else going through their own really hard story in life. And how special Diosito or universe that like someone who went to Mexico could have found my podcast and that it helped her. And I thought, like, it's just like, it felt like a synchronicity. It felt like an answered prayer. I was like, wow, this is so cool, so beautiful. And then to get to know her, and get to know that she, like, por ejemplo, could do Akashic readings, the books that she was into, the topics that she was into. And we would kind of like go back and forth and really encourage each other on our own paths as we were stepping further into whatever this is. So I wanted to take a moment to speak about her with you guys because she's obviously, I mean, this, it feels surreal in this moment. She pops up in my head all of the time right now. It's almost like I try to like make not make sense of it, but like let it register in my mind. And it's a weird thing because I never got to meet her in person, but there was conversation happening. So it's almost like, como que eso se acabó, that I no longer have access to her. I can no longer get to speak to her in a 3D way. And I think also because she embodied the spiritual aspect so beautifully. And I feel like I've always been someone who is like inching into this world, and she almost so naturally like stepped in. Um, it's not making me question the spiritual aspect, but it is like this weird, como, oh man, like my friend, my friend that I used to be able to like reach out to and talk to about this kind of stuff, pues ya no está aquí. And alongside, her passing and my cousin's passing, that's just been on my mind. It's a huge reminder, pues, que la vida de verdad sí se acaba. This is when you awaken. It's really strange because that becomes very apparent to you. And so many things become crystal clear, and you look around and it's almost like why isn't anyone else talking about that? Like, why isn't anyone else questioning this? Why isn't anyone else like tripping out on this? And what I have seen is that death, or it being close to me, has really been such a strong, stern teacher to me. It's a like, I think of it como, if you're an astrology person, como Saturn. If you're over 27, or 28, you've had a Saturn return. And Saturn returns can be these moments in life where they're very like confronting. They confront you with all the things you're trying to hide from. They confront you with all of this stuff bubbles up that you were trying to suppress, And I feel like there could be a lot of fear there, but there's also a point where so much fear comes up that it sets you free. And it's such a weird experience. And these last couple of weeks and months have been reminders of that, really como, for me, like really reminding me of, no, it is that serious for you to live out the life that you want. It is that serious because other people's opinions of who you were and what you did really won't matter when you're on the other side. That's been on my mind a lot. And in this life that I feel like is cyclical, that maybe it feels like a loop, but I know is a spiral. I use the spiral a lot in my like the emoji of a spiral, but I also use it in the Sol Primas portal where I post videos. It's a spiral, an upward spiral, because we come back to similar lessons in different ways. And I feel like right now I'm coming back to this lesson or this remembrance of like what being close to my sister's potential passing did for me, which was it set me free. It reminded me of my mortality. It reminded me that maybe people around me aren't questioning things, but I am. There was like a decision and an ongoing decisions, because you start to stand out in a way that doesn't feel comfortable sometimes when you are the black sheep, or when you are the one questioning things that others aren't, or talking about things that others aren't, or making choices that other people wouldn't. It makes you stand out like a sore thumb, and it's like, do I really want to continue on this path? Pero I think I realized for myself, like, I would rather this than numb, because that's what I'm going to end up doing. I already have this knowing. I already have this feeling of like, oh, yeah, we are mortal beings. Oh, yeah, we are here for just a short period of time. Oh, yeah, it doesn't actually matter what people think. I didn't come here for that. I came here to be my own version of human. And I am going to try to be as free as I possibly can be. There are limitations, and we are still in a society, but I'm going to start inching into whatever freedom I can find within my own life. And I'm going to start living life for me, because that's why I was born. I wasn't born to be a perfect daughter or a perfect worker. I was born to figure out who Priscilla is. Imagine, I was telling a friend of mine, like, imagine que you live your whole life being that good worker, good daughter, pero como comes home, does laundry, cooks, cleans, wakes up, does the same thing again and again and again and again and again and again. And then when you go back up or down or wherever we end up when we pass away, que te diga tu soul tribe, like, oh my God, so how was it? Did you dance? Because we gave you those dance skills. Did you end up going out and dancing all the time? And you're like, no. Did you draw? Do you remember that you asked for that drawing gene and like you took it down there when when you were reborn? Did you draw? Did you like get into art classes and get together with your friends? And you're like, no. What about your sensitivity? That sensitivity, that high, that empathy that you naturally embody, that was going to help you connect with so many people on such a deep level. How was that? And you're like, sensitivity. I was always the strong one. I always had to be like this tough, like tough skinned person, because it was scary to be vulnerable. Can you imagine? Like your soul tribe's gonna be like, what? Oh my God, you went down there to shake stuff up. You went down there to live your truth. Why didn't you do that? And obviously that's my imagination, right? Quien sabe que pase realmente, pero the knowing that just continuously pops up for me is like we were born to to fully express ourselves, to fully experience ourselves. And so many people walk around not fully experiencing themselves because they are stuck in maybe trauma loops, in fight or flight. They are stuck in meeting others' expectations or people pleasing or overachieving. So I guess I want to leave you today with like, what would it look like if you dared to step into the things that are calling your name? If you inched in, if it's too scary to step in, inch in, lean in, try it. That will make you fall back in love with life. That will make you feel authentic and fulfilled and alive again. Because so much around us is really not meant to return us back to us. It extracts, it removes, it disempowers us, it puts us against each other. It makes us forget our true essence, our true light, our soul. So rest in peace, Alyssa. I know you can hear me, girl. I have this feeling that you're up there and cheering me on this mission, and I feel like I'm gonna remember you in the work that I do. And thank you for the light that you shared, not only with me, but I'm sure with so many other people. And rest in peace to my cousin, my primo Freddie, who lived out a hard life, I feel, and deserves so much better in so many ways. But he has many siblings here and a son to look after from up there, and I'm sure he will do good things from up there too. Whew, man. Sorry, guys. I said I wouldn't take us too deep. I said I was going to keep us, in a good, goofy mood. Pero the podcast, like I said, has walked alongside me through so much. And it's so beautiful sometimes when you guys reflect back to me that it has walked alongside you through a lot too. And I guess I needed this. So thank you if you made it to the end of this episode. Sorry to kind of, end it off on this note, but that's life, right? It's this duality of the good and the bad, the amazing and the worst. Like, it all happens, and sometimes it happens so fast and at the same time, and other times we have really good chunks and then really bad chunks and then really good ones again. And what a blessing to know that there are other people like me. Now I don't question that. Now I know that. And that has been really beautiful and cool. And I hope that this podcast does that for you. A remembrance that you're not alone, that most of us don't have everything figured out. I'm sure you can gauge that from every guest I have had on, and I'm so grateful for the vulnerability that each one of them displays, because no one comes on and is like, nah, I'm good, I got it all figured out, like, look at me. No, everyone has come on here and shared certain depths of their stories, and I truly feel like that was the purpose of this, and it continues to be my purpose, is to be real, to be honest, to be truthful, to be authentic. And I really think that's where the magic lies. So thank you for listening. Please share this with your amigas, amigos, amigues, primas, primos, primes. And remember, first gen, that I love you, I love me, and I can't wait for you to love yourself. Okay, pues, bye.